A warm welcome, everybody. Welcome to the first of 4 Black History Month webinars. Really a warm welcome to everybody for joining us, and a particular warm welcome to our guests this evening on this first of, I would say, 4 celebrations around Black History Month. I'm really honoured and privileged to have the wonderful Viv Anderson and Luther Blissett with us. Those of you of a certain vintage will remember Viv, who played for such fantastic managers as Sir Alex Ferguson and Brian Clough. Playing for England, has a real claim to fame there, which Butch will talk about. And we've got one of my other favourites here tonight in Luther Blissett, who played under the magnificent Graham Taylor, played for Watford, and then also played for the Rossoneri in Italy, played for AC Milan. Joining us this evening as well, we have Butch Bazal from the FA. Butch is going to lead the discussions with our 2 legends of the game. So, Butch, I'll leave you to introduce yourself. A really warm welcome to Viv and to Luther. We're so honoured and privileged to have you with us. Butch, welcome to yourself, sir. And it's great to have them with us on our first Black History Month webinar. Absolutely outstanding. Cheers, Steve.
Great. Once again, Luther, Viv, welcome. This is the first of 4, as we said. I'm really looking forward to this one. I want to go straight in with the questions, actually. Viv, my first one to you would be, what does Black History Month mean to you, Viv?
But we've had a discussion for the last, I don't know how long. I get wheeled out at this time of the year, put in front of the cameras, go down to London. Me and my general day work, not a lot, but obviously around about this time, people want to speak to me and talk about my experiences that I've had over the years. So to me, it's a limited thing, because it's only around about this time when we've had discussions when thinking it should be all the year round, not just now and again.
Absolutely. Luther?
Well, for me, I think what Viv said is about right. And Black History Month really should be something which is ongoing right the way through the year. It's very important because Black History Month is about education, about people learning a lot about their own heritage, and plus other cultures learning about your heritage. And so for me, it is important that it's an ongoing thing every year. I used to do some work at schools, and that always came up. Why do we only do it for 1 month of the year? Why cannot it be an ongoing, so it's every day, in every week? And I think that is where we need to go with this. So people are not taking it seriously. It's more the point that people will learn more because it becomes normal conversation rather than just squeezing it all into 1 month.
Absolutely understandable. Normalising the conversation is what I'm hearing right now. Just a quick one to every listener and viewer. If you want to generate any sort of questions whatsoever, just drop them into the chat box, and we will have the second half in which we'll do that. Just looking at what the whole hour looks like. The first half will be me having a conversation with Luther and Viv. Then we're going to have a 10-minute break at half time, in which the FA will talk a little bit about the programmes that they're currently running to support Black and Asian coaches in and around the game. And then the second half will be a Q&A, live Q&A with Viv and Luther for any public to join in. Viv, first player to play for England. What an incredible feat. Viv, what was it like? What was the build-up like? Was there any type of build-up?
Yeah, there was a lot of build-up, I must admit. Going to see my parents, interviewing my parents. But maybe before that, there was myself and Laurie, God rest his soul, not with us now. But there was always talk in the under-21s, who's going to be the first one? Who's going to be the first one? That was always in the papers. And then we went to Bulgaria. I remember going to Bulgaria when we shared a room together. And you think we'd be talking about, is it going to be you? Is it going to be me? And then you end up talking about cars he was going to buy and everything else. So it was not really, is it going to be me? Is it going to be you? It's always about, things in general. And luckily enough, it turned out to be me. And I was very fortunate and very honoured to be first at anything. It's a great feat, I must admit.
And I think when you think about that time, and you talk about being the first, Luther, the first black player to score as a senior as well. when you were selected, did that go through your mind?
Not at all, not in any shape or form. The colour thing, when you're a kid and you're growing up like I was in London, having come from Jamaica, yes, you're aware of the racism thing, but as I started playing, it was not the first thing in my mind. It was something you had to deal with, because one of the things I remember arriving at a game on the coach, and the players were all getting off, and I got off near the back, because as usual, backseat boys and all of that. And I remember one of the supporters said, "Look, they've got an N word with them," and that shocked me, because yes, I'd heard it before, but now you're in a professional environment, I never thought that would be the same. And so that was something that was in my mind then. But once I was picked for England, it never crossed my mind in any shape or form that I might be the first black player to score or anything like that at all. It was just about trying to do the best that I could, emulate the stuff that I did at my club, which got me the call up.
Fantastic. And it's shocking, but we're talking that many decades ago, and yet still we're talking about the same issue. Viv, when we eventually get off the knee, what does racial equality look like, Viv?
Racial equality means we've got a voice in the boardroom, more managers. You look at the ratio of managers now. Me and another one, a lad called Keith Alexander, he was the first black manager. And 2 weeks later, I became a manager at Barnsley Football Club. And the talk was, in the headlines in the papers, this is the start of a new generation. That was 25, nearly 30 years ago now. And I don't think we've changed at all, really. I think we've got less black managers than we had then. So it's something has to be done. The knee thing, yes, I fully agree with it. But I think these things have got to stop now. We've got to talk in the dressing room. We've got to talk in managers and coaches, and we've got to be in the boardroom making decisions. I think it's a long time ago.
Luther, let me take you back to your playing days for a moment. I want to talk the legend that was Graham Taylor, that incredible run of 4 promotions from the 4th division all the way to the 1st. And being the team that you had at that time as well, quite a meteoric rise. What was that like? And what, more importantly, Taylor being at the helm of it, tell for the coaches who are listening, if there was anything that you would take away from what Graham Taylor taught you, what would it be?
I think if I start with that question first, the thing that I took from working on that and then working with Graham Taylor was his attention to detail on everything. We never went into a game where we were always very well prepared for the game. We had, and you now call it a game plan, but all we did was prepare the best we could for the game. And we would go out there and we knew how we were going to play, and we knew what the opposition were going to do. So Graham's thing was always, when they have the ball, you have no option but to play the game the way they want to play it. But when you get the ball, that's when you can dictate the way that you wish to play the game. And for me, that really says it all about the way he prepared things. We knew what we had to do to stop the opposition, but we also knew what we had to do to go and take the game to them and really make them have to work very hard to try and stop it. Because, Viv will pay testament to this. The one thing any defender hates is players that are willing to run at them and run beyond them. And you see now in the modern game, as we like to call it, most strikers now are quite happy. They love the ball to feet. And for me, that makes it easier for the defender to do that. We saw Liverpool at the weekend with a team that suddenly, suddenly wanted to run beyond them. You got Barkley wanted to run beyond all the time. And it causes teams no end of problems. So that was what Graham really taught me. And it was something I did anyway, but he encouraged us more and more to do that, because that was playing to the strength that we had and not playing to the strength of the opposition. So that's from that. But being able to play for and work with somebody such as Graham Taylor, who, in my opinion, and I think many would agree, was more ahead of his time than people imagine. There's a lot of thing now put towards the stats on on your injuries and on where you win the ball back and all that. But Graham was doing that back in the end of the 70s when he arrived. So we knew every game that we were playing, we knew where the ball is lost and what you need to do counter attack. We worked on all these things, and Graham had all these stats for us. Myself as a striker knew that minimum of 3-4 shots a game, minimum. That was that.
Yeah.
The team,
They were the
20 shots a goal we had to go for every game. You didn't always reach that total, but that was your aim. And by doing so, you knew you'd give yourself the best chance. And I think paying attention to those detailed things, forget about the abilities of your players, because the ability's there. But it's these other things that the players can take on board, which helps them to use their ability in the right areas and more often.
Viv, attention to detail. Wow, talk about legends. Brian Clough. What was it like? I mean, I think you started at Forest. You went through an incredible period where you just about won everything. And first of all, being the only black player in the team at the time, Viv.
Yeah.
So how was Cloughy? What was he like? And more importantly, did he protect you?
I'll start at the first bit.
Yeah.
Luther's gone into great detail about what Graham Taylor did, and which was fantastic for him. We never had anything. It was about 5-a-side training. It was a group of players. Lucky enough, we had a group of players that knew their jobs on a Saturday afternoon. Knew how to win games, knew how to fight, knew how to do everything to win 3 points on a Saturday afternoon. So it was all about 5-a-side. If he ever came out and said, "Oh, we're going to do some team play today," we'd go, "No, boss, no." And we just go back to 5-a-side play, because that's what we know, because we know our jobs on a Saturday. But the first time the job didn't go well on the Saturday afternoon, you knew for a while. And I'm a great example. I think we got beat at home by somebody, probably Luther and Watford probably at the time. They'd done more work than us. And so the Monday morning, we go down the training ground. We had to go down the training ground, and we had to walk about 10-15 minutes to get there. Well, we had cars, but it was better to walk down the side of the Trent. And what we had to do, we had to get the cows off the training field first, because we had to share with them. That's back in the day. So we get the cows off, and then beside the training ground, there was about 6-foot area with nettles about 100 yards long. So he'd say it was cold. It was cold for February morning, and he says, "Everybody take your tracksuit bottoms off." So tracksuit bottoms, I was freezing, boss. So we take our tracksuit bottoms off, and he says, "Run through them nettles." We went, "Those nettles over there?" He says, "Yeah." Everybody. So the Trevor Francis of these world, the big superstars of these worlds, Peter Shilton's, everybody had to run through. And all you could hear was, "Ow, ooh," all these nettles stinging them at the end. You think, "Oh, I got through it. I got to the other end." And he'd say, "Get back through it." We'd have to go back through it again, going over boulders. These are multi-millionaires now, not multi-millionaires, but very senior players. So he says, "That'll teach you not to get beat on the Saturday afternoon." So that was his way of teaching us. We don't want to get beat too often, because you know what happens.
That's amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Story, you tell people that and they go, "What? People, you could fall over a boulder, do your ankle in, whatever it may be." But no, that was his way of getting the point over.
That's incredible. Absolutely incredible.
Yeah, there was no health and safety like it is now. Just wrong with it is what you did.
Yeah.
Luther, let me take you back to those days were amazing, but there were also quite dark days when you think about what you had to face as a player. When we talk about standing on the shoulders of giants, there's two here in front of me on the screen. It was because of your pioneering and your strength and your resilience that took you through that period. And we look at the footballers of today, especially the players of colour. They owe a massive debt to both of you. So how did you cope? What was your coping mechanism at that time? First to you, Luther, and then I'm going to ask the same question to you as well, Viv.
I think with that, the title is, is from the past to the future type thing. And it was pretty much that, looking back to the past and taking some, I suppose, getting some guidance and the courage from the likes of Martin Luther King, and what they had to do. There was different ways you could either always want to fight with everybody when there was a confrontation, and get involved in that sort of thing all the time. Or you could find another way of doing it. And sometimes just being a little bit more quiet, but being very strong in what you do and dealing with situations on where it matters, which is on the football pitch, that sometimes gets you a long way. And that was the way that I went about doing it. I thought, I've seen what others have done, and it really hasn't done them a great deal of good, because when you look at it, and people and black players were branded with, he's got a chip on his shoulder, you knew then his career was really going to be very, very difficult from here on in. So you had to avoid that. And for me, it was just dealt with things almost on those individual bases, so that the players you're up against knew that you were not going to take any nonsense from them in the first place. And the supporters, for what they were saying, that they couldn't put you off your game from the things that they were saying. So you had to almost block all that out as best you could and just focus on doing the job the best of your ability. And that's what I did. And it was really from the civil rights marches and what Martin Luther King did, the way that they kept going, and they had far worse treatment than I had. People getting
incredibly inspirational. Thanks, Luther. Viv, how did you cope?
First and foremost, when I was 17 in a reserve match, I dislocated my kneecap and snapped my ligaments. So I was fortunate. The surgeon was the best surgeon in the world at the time, was the voice surgeon. And subsequently, later on in years, used to take my X-rays with him and do seminars all over the world, saying, "See this X-ray? This boy he's playing now in the big league in England." So from an early age, I had to be really, really disciplined. I had to go in half an hour, 40 minutes before anybody else did. So I made sure my left knee was strong enough to train, to play Saturday afternoons. So from a very, very early age, I got the discipline in me to go, when anybody else wants to shout at me on a football field, I ain't going to be bothered too much. I wanted to be a footballer so badly that I went in earlier. I did what the surgeon said religiously. Even now, I always do weights on my knee if I go in the gym, make sure it's still sturdy and it still keeps me in good stead. And I had a fantastic manager. I always remember, and I tell this story, and it's a true story, but you've got to laugh. We played Carlisle away. Well, Luther knows as well as I do. Going to Carlisle in the 70s, early 70s, it was like blackface in Carlisle. My God, I've never seen a blackface in Carlisle. So I'd played on the Saturday. I think I made my debut on the Saturday. We go to Carlisle on the Wednesday or the following Saturday. I can't remember when it was. And I'm on the subs bench, and I hear Mr. Clough say, "Anderson, warm up." So I warm up, and within 5 minutes, I'm sat back down. And he looks down the line and says, "Anderson, I thought I told you to warm up." I said, "I have, boss, but they're throwing apples, pears, and bananas at me." So he goes, "Get back out there and get me 2 pears and a banana." Right? I went back out and warmed up, didn't get the 2 pears and banana, but he pulls me afterwards in the toilets. He said, "Come here, you." And he said to me, I'm 17, remember? He says, "You let people like these dictate to you, you are no good to me. I'm going to pick somebody else." So from that day on, what anybody ever said to me, it went right over my head. I was just concentrating on making a career, because football was what I loved, and that's what I did. I went out to play to my best ability, knowing full well if I didn't play to the best of my ability, would sack me or drop me for the next game. So it was him who gave me the encouragement to go out and to perform to my best ability. And he said, "You wouldn't be here if I didn't think you were good enough. You were good enough, I'm going to pick somebody else. You're here because you can play, you have the ability. Go out there and prove it." So I was very fortunate to have, not fortunate to have the injury, but it was part of the growing up process, and B, having Mr. Clough as a manager.
Incredible. Absolutely incredible. Luther, let me move you to Italy and Milan. We talk about players going abroad currently and making absolutely making a success of it, and also just for just the opportunity. What was that like? We look at some of the European countries back then, and we think that racism was rife there. What was it like over there, Luther, with Italy and with Milan?
Well, I think when you mentioned there that we have, lots of players now of different colours and religion, whatever, and cultures going to other countries to play football, and I think it's absolutely an amazing thing. But again, that is on the back of what Viv and others, myself, have done, why that happened. Nobody thinks, twice going to think, oh, he's black, we don't want him. Can he play? And that now is the only criteria that you need to have if somebody will take you. And that is because of what people like Viv, myself, and others before me have gone and done, why these players now don't even have to ever think about or have to cross swords with that one. But at the time when I went to Italy would have been, because that was 82, 83. Yeah, 83, 84 season. So Italy, I say, would probably a good 5 or more years behind where the progress that we had made. They really hadn't got to the point where they thought this should not go on. So it happened everywhere you go. But again, the training and grounding that I had, if you want to call it that, in England, helped me enormously. Plus, I had the added bonus. Couldn't understand most of them when I first went there, could I? So in that respect, at the beginning, it didn't really bother me at all. And as I went on, it doesn't bother me again, because it's no different than what I'd been through for the previous 5 or more years in England. So was
it harder or easier?
It was easier. And I say, yeah, it was easier for me because I suppose the language, so you couldn't understand every word. You understand bits, but you couldn't understand every word. We're here, obviously, you understand everything, regardless of what their accent may be and from where part of the country they're from. You understand every word they say. But over there, when things are coming from the crowd, unless you listen very carefully, you're not going to understand everything. So in that way, it was easier to block it all out.
That ignorance is bliss sometimes. I'm conscious that we're getting close to half time, but before we go, I do want, I've got a couple of questions for Viv as well, because, we've talked about 2 legendary managers, but you was the first to be signed by Sir Alex as well. Tell me what comparisons between Clough and Ferguson.
As managers?
Yes.
Very little. I mean, I've been asked this question a million times. There's very, very little to choose to. You want to play football in the right way. You don't put the ball in the air. You pass to a teammate and move. They're very, very similar, very disciplinarians. They were very, very, very similar in many, many, many ways. And people said to me, if to choose between the 2, who would you choose? I went, that's a hard question. Sir Alex has won numerous amount of championships. Clough won the back-to-back European Cup. I would say, I hope Sir Alex isn't listening. I'm just going to say Brian Clough just tipped him by a millimetre, only because, as I said to you, we had to get the cows off the training field. The average gate was 19,000. We went back-to-back European Cups. I mean, that's an unbelievable feat for a provincial club like Nottingham Forest. So for that reason, I'm just going to... Manchester United had all the best facilities. They had the best choice of the best players. And we had Bobtag and Bobtail at our team at the time. John Robertson, he used to smoke more cigarettes, and he used to call his car the ashtray because he had that many cigarettes, and he was one of our best players. So we had a mismatch of a squad of players, but for 5 years they were superb in Europe and in our domestic league.
I've got loads of questions coming through. We're close to half time as well. I'm going to hand you over back to Steve and Luther, Viv. Time for a little break. In them days, it was oranges, wasn't it? I think so. Something like that, wasn't it? We've got
Luther used to have beers at half time. I know that. Don't worry about that.
You don't know our gaffer very well.
Here's what we're going to do. We're going for a half. You guys stay on the line by all means, because in the second half we're going to get some questions, and I know there's a few coming through already. But I'm going to pass over to Steve. Steve's going to talk a little bit about a number of the initiatives. I know there's a program you want to talk to me about, Steve. So I'm going to pass it over. Viv, Luther, the halftime whistle has gone, my friend. Steve,
I can go get a drink, can I?
You certainly can, sir. Make sure you don't turn your camera off, though, whatever you do. Back in 10. Thank you. Steve, over to you.
Thank you, Butch. Thank you, Luther. Thank you, Viv. That was brilliant. And I think that was really enjoyable. And I think the lesson for us all there is Butch, how they deal with being a role model, being a champion, being a pioneer, being the first to do something with grace, humour, and also Butch. What came shining through was the resilience to be who they wanted to be in a sport that they clearly loved. Absolutely fantastic. And I think Butch, some of these stories are about just lesser known, but not lesser. It's wonderful to hear these stories. What they've had to go through, Butch, as well, is to perhaps address some inequalities and some barriers. And I know that we're working hard to address stubborn inequalities and to remove some of these barriers in football, Butch. And I know you've worked recently on a project at the club placement program, Butch. What's that going to help coaches, hopefully, to enable them to do, Butch?
So we've had nearly 4 years of a UEFA B bursary, which has enabled us to qualify nearly over 300 coaches now, Black, Asian and minority ethnic and female coaches, Steve. And in that time, what we have now is an opportunity through the club placement program. One of the things that a number of the coaches would talk about is the fact that it's good getting qualified, but then it's that networking and trying to get into clubs. What the club placement program offers is an opportunity to actually gain that experience and exposure. We've got some applications open now, Steve. We've got 12 clubs, 6 of them Premier League clubs. So it's an opportunity to get across Cat 1 clubs. The qualifying criteria is a UEFA B. And if you have one, then it's across to the Boot Room website. On the Boot Room site, you'll actually find all the details around what the placement program looks like. I think it's just come up now on my screen. Steve, the most important thing is that we know that we want to develop opportunities with the Fit for the Future. That's exactly what it's going to do. Give us an opportunity. So
this is a really exciting initiative, Butch, and obviously you want as many people who qualify as possible to apply, because it is a great opportunity, isn't it, Butch? And I think there's some other people going to be supporting both the clubs and potentially the coaches as well, Butch. There's an exciting new group of talented coach development officers come on board recently. There certainly are, and just recently appointed. We've got 8 in total, but I won't steal their thunder. So we have got some coach development officers right across the country supporting diversity and inclusion. And I'm just going to pass it over now to Danny, who's going to tell us a little bit about that. Danny, hopefully you're on the line, mate.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Great to see you. Great to see the names that are on the list in the chat box at the moment interacting with us. Well, welcome to the D&I team. Myself and Pav, we're going to navigate you through what the D&I team, which the Diversity Inclusion team, will do in the new strategy. So there's going to be 8 members of staff, and what our main aim is going to be is supporting Black and Asian coaches up and down the country. So, Pav, are you there, my friend?
Looks like you're going solo, mate.
Solo, yeah. So what we're going to try and what our mission and our statement is we're going to address stubborn inequalities within the game, and we're going to address it, and we're going to support coaches within it. Second is we're going to look at encouraging more coaches to step in the game. So where the barriers were in the past, we're going to try and open those doors and give coaches who are just coming into the game opportunities to go out and coach and just enjoy the game into coaching. We're going to look at a modern and inclusive approaches to coach development. So one of the things that we're going to look at is the way that we can come out and support, whether it be in situs, whether it will be online, and it's going to be really personalized, and it's going to be really connected to you. So that's going to be that's the third mission that we've got to do. And the digital first, the fourth bit is don't be scared. We're not just going in, and it's not just going to be IT and digital, but we are aware that we're going to make opportunities available on demand, and we're going to make it really personalized and really individual to your needs. So that's where the D&I team comes into place. What I'm going to throw into you as well is what the D&I, the Diversity and Inclusion team, looks like. So we've got the North team, which I was supported by Pav Singh on this call, and Pav is looking after the North East and Yorkshire. We've also got Sarah, who's going to be looking after the Northwest. On the West team, we've got Matty Jones, who's going to be looking after that West Midlands area with Birmingham, and we've got Lawrence Locke that'll be looking after the Southwest. In the South team, we've got myself. I want to be on the M25 corridor, so I've got the luxury of being on the M25, meeting you all, and that's going to be looking, and I'll show you what that looks like. And we've got Peter Augustine as well, which will be looking after London and the AFA. In the East, we've got Lee Brown, who's going to be looking after the East Midlands, and we've got Darren Moss, who's going to be looking after that East Coast. So that's the 8 of us. To get in contact, if you look at the list right there, you can see the names and you can see the counties that they're operating in. So if you fall in any of these counties, please make contact with the CDO of the Diversity and Inclusion team. They will be able to come out and do a bespoke support and development for you as Black and Asian coaches. So Pav is looking after the North Riding, the Durham area. We've got Sarah Loudon. I don't know if we've got any Manchester United supporters or Liverpool supporters to call. She'll be able to consult most of you. And we've got Matty Jones, who's looking after that Birmingham area, as I said before, and Lawrence is looking after that Berks and Bucks, Oxfordshire, Wiltshire area, and all those other counties that fall below. Lee Brown is looking after the Nottingham, Leicestershire area, and you've got Darren Moss, who's going to be looking after the Cambridge and Bedfordshire, supporting those coaches. Myself, as I said, it will be the M25, and I'm just looking forward to those trips on those M25s. Really looking forward to that. And we've got Peter Augustine, who's got a bit of a jolly up. He's going to Jersey and Guernsey. No, I'm sorry. Pete's going to be looking after London and the AFA. So just have a look at that, ladies and gents. And if you do fall underneath those counties, please get in contact with those email addresses that are at the top. Steve, Butch, am I right that these slides will be sent out to the learners as well? That's on the
thanks, Danny. Yeah, we'll make sure we'll make sure we share that. Danny, just take you back. That was fantastic, Danny, and thanks for sharing. Danny, we've got some really talented people in these roles, Danny. Danny, just give us a couple of minutes on your coaching background, Danny, because I know that's something you're very proud of, and some of the things that you've done in your career, Danny.
Okay, so my coaching background started when I was 16. Didn't get the qualifications that I needed to go and be a solicitor, as you do. And I went to college and I ended up doing my FA level 1. And I went to America. I worked in America for 5 years. I worked for various community programs like Leighton Orient and Greenhouse Sports based in London. And I done some work in academy football as well, 2 clubs, Leighton Orient and Charlton. And it's just been learning, Steve, to be honest. My journey's been, as I said, I've been in America. I've worked in inner city projects. I've worked in academies. I've worked in private schools. As an all-grounded coach, I've been there in terms of disability football as well. I've worked in disability football, the Kicks program. So, I've been involved in different areas of football, and I'm just really looking forward to just being on the grass again.
Brilliant. Right. That's fantastic. Thanks, Danny. And obviously, I'm proud to be working with you all. And Danny, it's fair to say we've got some really enthusiastic and really keen to support coach development officers. So, Danny, we'd encourage people to get in touch, wouldn't we, with their regional team members, and we're there to help in any way we can. Danny, I'll let you go on. I think you've got one more slide, Danny, just to sum up.
Just to finish off, it's just have a look at the quote. This is what we're going to be all about, and this is our mantra as the 8 CDOs for the diversity and inclusion. And we're just really looking forward to coming and working with you guys in the foreseeable future.
Thanks, Danny. That was absolutely magnificent. Butch, really exciting club placement program and CDOs, and also we've got some wonderful people, Butch, working across supporting PE, teacher development, and also got a fantastic team with Bex Garlick's Women and Girls officers. So some exciting times, Butch, at the FA across the grassroots team.
Fantastic, Steve. Thank you so much. We are back, second half. The boys are ready, and we're ready to go. We have had a load of questions flying in as well. So, Viv, before I kick off on the questions, and Luther, because we've got a number of coaches in and around the game who are obviously listening in and viewing today, both also coaching as well. I know, Luther, you did a stint with Graham Taylor, and Viv, and it's an incredible period of time with Middlesbrough as well. Starting with you, Luther, first of all, what was the transition like from playing to coaching?
Well, it took a little bit of time and I think it's something that I need to say here is when you started playing back then, it was take your coaching badges, you become a coach or a manager or whatever at the end of it. And that's all well and good. But I think if we really want to move this issue onwards, we need to stop telling or saying that anybody that wants to be a coach manager, this is the way you go, because there are so many other roles there are at football clubs. If you want to be in the boardroom, you've got to be the financial director, you've got to be chief executive, you've got to be chairman, you've got to be all those sort of positions if you want to get in the boardroom. And I think we need to make that very clear. My nephew, who's playing at the moment in time, he has done his qualification. So when it comes to finance, he could be the financial director or whatever at a football club because he's got that. And I think we need to, boys and girls out there need to look wider in where the jobs are. There are very limited jobs when it comes to coaching and managing. But when it comes to the other positions, there's far more of those. And it's not only at football, you can have those jobs many other places. So I think you need to keep your options open for as long as possible when it comes to job. But for me, the transition was you took your coaching badges and you started doing little bits of coaching at your club, or you did it at a local youth club. You did a little bit with them, and you got maybe the opportunity to go and do a bit of coaching at maybe one of your local more senior clubs that below the league sort of thing, and you did some coaching in that, which is great experience. But then when I had the opportunity to go with Graham Taylor and coach in '96, it was an amazing thing to be doing, because Watford then were struggling. They got relegated at the end of the season anyway. But with Graham's guidance and the things that I knew, and then what he taught me, that transition was made so much easier because you had somebody, just as what people say, that knows the game inside out and knows how to be successful at what they do. And people, there's more than one way to be successful. And so Graham was very good at what he did to be successful and the way he coached and prepared the team. And a lot of what he did, especially then, was a lot of mental stuff, more so than he actually did when I was playing. So the transition itself was okay, but it took a bit longer than I would have liked it to.
Thanks, Luther. Viv, incredible time with Brian Robson at Middlesbrough, and success also, and also, like you said, Barnsley as well. What was the transition like, and why is it that you're not managing now, Mr. Anderson?
Too fat and too old, I think. That's the answer to that question. Now, listen, I was given the opportunity. I had a contract at Sheffield Wednesday, and I got a phone call from the Barnsley chairman saying, we'd like you to be our next manager, player manager. So I had no intention of taking it. Spoke to Trevor Francis, who was the manager at the time. He said, it'd be a good opportunity for you. So I took the opportunity and took Danny Wilson with me. Player managers is a hard job. I don't think you've done. Have you done it, Luther?
No, I haven't done it.
Honestly,
wouldn't want it.
It's hard work because you have to be. You're in the boardroom, on a Thursday when you want to be at home resting, smoky boardroom, going through your notes and telling them what you think of the club and everything else. You've got to get yourself home, you've got to put yourself in the taxi. At half time, when you're like this, somebody's got to talk. So I got my first team manager there, which is a lad called Eric Winstanley, to do all the talking because I had to get my breath back for the second half. So after a while, we were doing okay, and then I took myself out of the team, which I was one of the better players because they want to hear the manager's voice at the end of the day. So I took myself out of the team. And the results did a lot better, and we ended up mid-table. And then I got a call from Brian Robson to say, but we'd always talked at England saying, all things being equal, would you join me if I got a job? I said, yeah. And then I got this Barnsley job, and I rang him and said, what do you think? He said, it'd be a good experience for you if you could go with me if I'd go anywhere else. So I took the job, and then I got the call to say, hey, you want me and Steve Gibson, we want to meet in Middlesbrough. We went up. He sold us the future of the club and how he's how he thought the future should be, and we bought into the idea, and we were there for 8 years, I think, at the end of the day. And the answer to the question is, I did have a few inquiries after Brian and I left. There wasn't what I really wanted to do, and I am now with a company called Play On Pro, trying to look after old players like Luther.
We're gonna,
I must add.
we're gonna be looking forward in a moment, and that question will come along where you are, where you are now, and what you're doing. But we've had a number of questions on the chat box, and I want to start with them. Mark Foot's asking Luther, how were you both able to turn the other cheek in face of racism on the pitch?
Luther, you go first.
Yeah, well, it was a case of the way you could survive in the game. I mentioned it earlier that quite often, if there was any sort of confrontations or whatever, then you would, not because you would get hit or anything, but you would come out worse, because people would quite often think you would be the one that caused and drove the whole thing. So it was a case of when it happened, quite often I'd be the one that'd be flat on beyond the floor. So, you take a breath and literally stay there, count to 10. But in your little notebook mentally, you write the number down of who did it. And the first chance you got, and it would do if you played up front, because centre halves like to show how they can clear the ball and show what good players there was. You'd hit them a bit late, starting from somewhere by their groin, going down to their ankles, and that's what you do, because you had to let them know that you weren't going to stand for it, because you had every right to be there as much as them, because they're recording all the names on the sun and one thing other. So it was a case of either playing football and just crossing that line a little bit, or ended up crossing that line completely the wrong way, and then the FA get involved and whatever, and you end up being branded a troublemaker. So I chose the other route.
Did you get much abuse on the field from fellow professionals?
When I first started, the first probably season and a half, because we were in the 4th division then, and you would go to some of these grounds once you were the other side of Birmingham, and as you said yourself about Carlisle, they're not used to seeing anybody of colour, so you would get verbals from them all the time. But for me, it was just words, and it was a case of those words. Yes, they hurt, and when you think about it, some of the names you recall, they still do hurt, and that it brings me back. When they say sticks and stones may break my bones, names never hurt me. Tell you what, now I've had broken bones, kneecap, and all sorts. I can't remember what the pain was. When people call your names and stuff like that now, and I still hear it now, all those feelings come straight back.
I think it's different for forwards like you, flair players. My job was to kick people like you. Clough used to say, your job is to stop the winger playing.
Absolutely.
Whoever's in front of you playing, whatever foul means or foul, whatever the word is, you've got to stop him playing. The only way you can get better than them is by stopping playing, and then hopefully your ability takes you further forward, and then you dictate to him. But first and foremost, remember back in the day, Lou, ball goes up to the winger or the centre forward, and you go bang right at the back of him, and you go, what's all that about? So if you don't like it, go over there. Yeah. And then he'd go over there, and then the other fullback would do exactly the same. So we caught in between. You wouldn't know whether to stay here or stay there. Yeah. That was a given. That's what we used to do back in the day.
Yeah. Viv, I've got a question from Lindsay Dixon. She was asking, what was the reaction of your teammates when racism occurred, and what happened?
All the lads at Forest stuck up for me. Honestly, they were a great set of lads, and they wouldn't take it. I remember getting a bottle thrown at me at West Ham, and Kenny Burns was nearly over there trying to chin one of them, one of those, So we had a very small knit community. Nottingham, we used to leave training, go for lunch together. And the ones who had kids, they'd go away and pick the kids. The single lads would stay together. So we all, 7 days a week, we'd always be together. So anything happened on a football field, we were very, very close-knit. And anything to anybody, we were first there to stand up for them and look after them. So I was very fortunate to play with a group of players that really looked after me.
Luther, did it ever go? Sorry, Luther, go on. Sorry, my apologies.
It was at Watford, and I think Forest are a much bigger club than Watford were, but they're not one of the big, 40, 50,000 seater stadiums. And I think the players at those two clubs they've got such a bond between them that, you know, you looked after each other on and off the pitch and everywhere you went. And I think that helped you get the success that, you know, that clubs did get.
Do you think either, and this is a question to either of you, did you ever consider walking?
Never.
Listen, never. Never in a million years.
If you walked off, your career would have been over.
We back in the day, if we walked off, Luther, we wouldn't play again.
That's right.
Our teammates would go, "What's he doing?" Manager would go, "Get him out of the football club."
Yes.
You had to stay there and go through it for that reason, so we can have this conversation.
Exactly.
Because if we wouldn't be having this conversation, I'd be working at Sainsbury's or something like that. Because I walked off a football field and forgot all about it. But we're here now because we had to get through it. It wasn't pleasant, but we got through it. You know, so we can have these conversations and pass on our experiences to other people now.
Absolutely, and that's the debt. That's the debt that's owed to pioneers like you two, because what we have now is an influx of players that have it, and still we're talking about the issue, but where you were,
wouldn't be in a job, Butch. We wouldn't be. Luther would not be in a job if he walked off in 1975, 76. He wouldn't be in a job. He'd be kicked out of the football club, and nobody ever heard of him again.
Not get back to another club, because there's players, and we know players that had that sort of attitude, you know, and they would, as I said, that's why. Do you front up the people and, you know, go face to face and whatever? You can't do that. You could not have done that then, because your career is pretty much over. So you had to find another way, and that's why I alluded to what Martin Luther King and that civil rights movement did. You have to stare people down sometimes, you know.
Yeah.
And let your football do the talking. So they come out the football, come out the stadium and go, "I tell you what, that black guy was up front was class, wasn't he?" You know what I mean? And more times you do that, the more times they tell other people, and the more thing it goes.
And the less it goes, and that's pretty much what happened in my career as it went on. The more played, first season or so, after that, got less and less and less. And
it was opposite for me, Luth, because I'd be kicking the winger, they'd be going out the stadium and going, "See that right back? He was a dirty bugger."
I've got one from Denise Collins.
For you. That is the fullback for you.
There you go. There you go. I've got a question from Denise Collins. One of the stories that remains in my mind, says Denise, is Justin Fashanu. Do you think it's harder for male footballers to admit they're gay or be openly gay because of the media or because of fans, the stick they give the players, or is the way players are moulded in a club? No one's come out.
I think it's really difficult. He came to Forest and he was castigated at Forest. The manager didn't particularly like him. I had a group of friends. We invited him out, and he came out with us a few times on a Sunday night. You know, so we tried to get him involved in everything. But he kept himself to himself, and he didn't mix a lot really, and he didn't really help himself. Put it that way. And it might have been a sign of the times. I don't know, but it was very, very, very difficult for him.
Yeah,
a lovely lad, but.
I think what you say there, it probably was the fact that his life and the way it was. And so you keep yourself to yourself, and you keep out of the way as much as you can, so that, you know, things don't get any worse for you than it actually is. So, you know, all you can ever do for anybody in that situation is give them as much support as possible. Teammates and friends and family, that's all you can do. That's what I had from teammates, friends and family when I was getting the abuse. I mean, you could at least go home, you could talk about it and say, "Yeah, this happened," whatever. And that helped a great deal. So
fantastic.
I think humour's quite good. I remember we'd all heard stories about fashion. We didn't know if it's true or not, and all the rest of it. And came in, and John Robertson, who I mentioned earlier, came in one day and said, "Fash, are you gay?" Straight to his face like that. And Fash says, "Give us a kiss and I'll tell you." So humour's quite good at times, isn't it? And it was diffused, and that was it. After that, I don't think it was ever mentioned again.
Yeah,
I've got Danny's jumped on because Danny has got a question. So, Danny, over to you.
Yeah, hello Viv, hello Luther. I've just got a question regarding coaching, and you guys have obviously done your badges. We've got some coaches that are on this call at the moment, and it'd just be interesting for you just to describe your journey through the coaching process, but then also what top tips you can give these coaches that are on this chat right now to fulfill whatever they want to go out and do in terms of the coaching journey.
I'll let you into a secret now. I was a player at Sheffield Wednesday, And I get the call from the Barnsley chairman to be their manager, player manager. Never did my badges. Back in the day, a bit like Alex Ferguson, a bit like the Middlesbrough manager now, Neil Warnock. We knew around that time where I didn't have to do that, but I did. I became the manager and I became the assistant manager. So I didn't go through the process. I think it's important now you do to get any job, any level, you need the coaching badges. But I just think they need the opportunity once they've got the coaching badges to say, I've got this, that, the other. I do need an interview. I'm entitled to an interview and I'm entitled to a reply. And our Luther would have a different story than mine.
Yeah, I mean, I went through all of that. I did my first coaching badge and at the age of what I'd been 17, 18 when I did my very first one, and I passed the prelim and then decided, yes, I'd like to do more of this because it was enjoyable. Because when you've got a good coach anyway, and they sort of really motivate you to do so. And Graham was definitely one of those that did that. So I really wanted to, go down that road. I think when you talk about tips for anybody, I think the biggest thing is know your job, know your topics. So that, because one thing when it's senior players will test you on things and you need to give them an answer. And so you need to understand the topics, whatever you're working at, so that you always have the answers for them. And you have to be honest with the players as well. If you're not sure of something, sometimes it's best to say to them, I'm not sure, but I will let you know, I'll find out. And I think that's very, 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 very important.
Very valuable information. Really appreciate that, gents.
Cheers, Danny.
It's important as well.
Thanks, Luther. Martin Ruffin was asking, Luther, how were you able to enjoy the fantastic achievements of playing at AC Milan? But I think we kind of covered that one, Martin. But I've got one from Claire Priddle. She's really interested to know how welfare and safeguarding was handled for you all those days back. She was saying historically in football, there's been poor practice with well-publicised young white players. She's actually the safeguarding lead at QPR, prides herself on the equality and diversity the club does. And knowing your experience really helps when working with young players as something to compare against. So welfare and safeguarding.
Well, I mean,
what was it like?
It's a story. I would have been, my first season assigned to Watford was in 1976. And I'd scoring goals in the youth team, starting to score a few goals in the reserve team. We got to about October going to November time. And the first team coach said, and this was in the Watford reserve, this was put in an interview, says, yeah, the boys scored lots of goals and whatever. But now, now that the weather's getting like this, I think, we won't see him again because he can only play with the sun on his back. Excuse me? That was back then. And, people say, how did you respond to that? And again, what was I going to do? Go and have a rugby? No. What you do, you get your head down and continue doing all of the coaches, all of you keep doing scoring your goals, you keep working hard in training to show them that you're no different to any other player. Just because your skin's different doesn't mean there's any other difference in the way you go about your game. And I can look back and say that probably helped because it was a motivating factor for me to make sure that I came out on top.
Welfare. When I was playing, when I started, 1972, welfare came from the senior players at the football club. There was nobody designated at any football club to look after the younger lads. It was the older pros, lads of Frank Clark and people like that, Peter Shilton, people like that, to look after the younger lads and guide them in the right way and give them the right, disciplines. I think Larry Lloyd and all these people were fantastic. I played with Colin Todd. People like that were fantastic role models to learn off, and that's all we had. Didn't have any welfare person to look after us at all.
Yeah, it was done by the players, and a lot of it instigated by the manager, because Graham Taylor brought people like Sam Ellis, Dennis Booth and whatever, and those players were tasked to helping all of us young players. They're the ones that were always talking to you in training. Yes, sometimes they took the mickey as they do because that's what goes on, and you learn a lot more sometimes from that. Humour than you would if they could sit you down and give you a lecture.
And you take all those experiences into your coaching. You know, the things you've been through and the things you've seen and the things you've done, you know, you take that into your coaching and take the best bits. You know, we take a bit about from Sir Alex, bit about from Clough, bit from Terry Venables, bit about all the people you've worked with, Ron Atkinson, all the people you've worked with, and mould your own persona to give out the message.
I've got a number of questions. I know time's running out. Lee Cooper, he says, "Evening legends. I grew up watching the 3 Degrees for the Albion. How did you feel when you were playing and being racially abused, when the supporters that were abusing you almost definitely had black players on their side as well?"
But there wasn't that many black. I always remember everybody said to me, there was Clyde Best on the telly.
Yeah.
And that was it, really. Pardon?
Eddie Coker as well.
Eddie Coker, yeah. And there wasn't many black faces at all. And then Cyril and Laurie and Brendan came along, and that was it, really. And so, strange times. There wasn't much going on. It's just built and built now. But to be racially abused up and down the country now is bizarre, because every football club has got a black face in it. Back in the day, there was only, you know, maybe 4 or 5. That was it, you know, in the whole league.
I can add something to that. And actually, Nottingham, we played Notts County, and it probably was about end of September game at Vicarage Road, and they had 3 black players playing for them, just like Watford did. And I remember
Joe Richards. Joe Richards would be one.
Yeah.
Christie, was it?
Christie, that's it. Yes.
I can't think who the other one was.
Yeah, but yeah, we're playing the game, and we could hear, you know, the monkey chants and stuff coming from the ground. I'm looking around thinking, where is that coming from? It's coming from the Watford supporters. And this was like 30 minutes into the game. So half time comes, we go in, and there's no Graham Taylor in the dressing room, because normally he's in there, especially if you're not bossing the game type thing. And so he comes in right at the end and say, right, Steve's already spoken to you, right, get out there and get on with the game. We had no idea. Found out at the end of the game, he heard it, went and got the old microphone, and then the Tanai at half time said, "This is what football club, and we do not tolerate that sort of behaviour." No, it's coming from what supporters. And he said, "How do you think the black players on your team feel when they hear you doing that to the opposition black players? So think about that, and if you do it again, you'll be banned from this ground and you'll never be allowed back in." That was the end of it. Never heard any more. And that was because somebody put their head above the parapet and said, "This is not acceptable." And that's what Graham Taylor was like.
Fantastic.
I've got so many questions through it, and we could go on for a while. I'm just going to pick out a couple more. We've really looked at where you've come from, the work that you've done. I know Steve is gonna do a summary for us, but from my perspective in particular, I'm really fascinated to know what's going on now in your lives, Luther and Viv. Viv, tell us a little bit about where you are, what you're doing, and then Luther, it would be great to hear from you as well. The questions that we have, if it's okay, lads, if we did send them through and you had some time, it'd be great if you could answer them, because we are running out of time. Viv, over to you first. What's life like now? What you doing?
I have a company called Play On Pro, which looks after sports people. Majority are footballers, because that's what we know. I think 80% are. If you look behind me, you can see the wall where we've got lots of different people: cricketers, golfers, jockeys, you name it, rugby players, and we try and look at them after sport, you know. So I'll give you a statistic there. 75% of ex-footballers, when they retire, get divorced. 75%. 5% are in prison, because people say, take that envelope to Bristol and whatever, you know. And another statistic is 45% of them will be bankrupt within 5 years of retirement. It's a shocking statistic, and all we try and do as Play On Pro is try to look after them post retirement. So we've got an app for them. It's an invitation only. We've got 550 or something like that at the moment. All sports, men and women, and we look after them. We try and get them work. We try to give them privileges that they used to when they were playing. So, you know, hotels. We get deals on hotels and cars and insurance people, all a gambit of all different things. And it's maybe a bit of a help group as well, because there's no numbers on there. They text one another if they're in trouble. Say they read something about somebody and said, I hear you got in trouble with such and such, who helped you out? And it could be a self-help group as well. It's somewhere for them to go when the phone doesn't ring.
Still supporting players as you brought them through, and you're still doing it, Viv. It's absolutely fantastic. Luther, what's life like for you now? What are you doing? What are you up to?
Well, at the moment, it's the Watford thing was hospitality mainly. I've been in for the last number of years, match days, and occasionally the odd bits and pieces for them, and also doing it at away clubs as well for away games. So now that's all finished as such. But the project I'm working on at the moment is the former players club at Watford, trying to again reconnect with a lot of the players that have, shed blood, broken bones, and whatever. But all have helped to create and get Watford Football Club where it is, all in the name of Graham Taylor, because he was the one that created Watford as a community club and family club, and we're trying to just get that feel back together so the supporters can understand. And again, I think there's education in there, and I think it's the same within football, where fans can actually know all the players that have been through the club and of what they have done, what their part has been in creating their club and the history of what it is. Because I think that's something football, and I think sometimes we forget that those that have gone before, if it wasn't for them, where we would be now. And we are just in the process of setting that up so that we can help that. And that might mean doing charity games, doing golf days to raise money for various charities, or whatever it might be. But it's all in all to help and bring the community back together and help players if they're in any difficulties.
I think that's spot on what you've said. We talked about Black History Month, and I did a piece for a lad called Jack Leslie.
Yes.
Jack Leslie was a centre forward in the 1920 odd. He was playing for Plymouth, scoring goals for Plymouth, got called up for England, found out he was black in the end, and they took him out the squad.
Yes.
We talked about Black history. I didn't know anything about that 6 months ago. Didn't know anything about him. And this is all education. I think it's educating our next generation about things like this. How can I, fat and 64, find out about Jack Leslie from journalist who rang me up and said, would you like to do a piece because you're the first black player, but he could have been the first black player all those years ago. It's about education.
Yeah, I mean, for me, Butch, I would one of the things I would say is the FA, and this is a great opportunity I feel for them to do so. There should almost be a museum or whatever it be of all the players whatever national, where they come from, have represented England, the clubs they played for. So there's that history goes right the way through. And I think football clubs should do exactly the same thing. Where every young player starting out should know where their club has come from, who has played at that time. And
that is incredible.
When they sign foreign players now that come in, and a lot of them are, they should also understand that. Luther,
last bit. I've got a list of players here: Ince, Hensky, Cole, Ashley Cole, Leo Ferdinand, Wes Brown, Dwight York, Sol Campbell, Luther Blissett, Glenn Johnson, John Barnes, Ian Wright, Des Walker, Paul Parker, and Colt Palmer. Those players I've mentioned here are not involved in our game.
Yes.
Which is an absolute crying shame. But there's about 1,000 caps here, and more than 1,000 caps, and they're not involved in football at any level. So, and then Ashley Cole's just gone in as coach at Chelsea, but the rest of them are not doing punditry jobs or whatever it may be. They should be involved in some way.
Yeah. And if there ever was a call to action, it was right there. Viv Anderson, Luther Blissett, it has been an absolute pleasure. Absolutely outstanding. I'm going to pass you over to Steve Smithies now, smiling away. Mr. Smithies,
wow.
Give us the sum up then, my friend.
Wow. How do I sum up that? Absolutely inspiring. Thank you, Luther. Thank you, Viv. So many wonderful things. Look, Black History Month is about a celebration this month, but it's also, and we recognise it's also about celebrating and supporting people from all communities. all year round, and recognising the sacrifices that have gone before us, and also the fantastic role models that we have currently in the game today. Listening, Butch, to our two legends, the messages are around resilience, commitment, professionalism, and also, Butch, humour, being able to deal with things in a humorous way. But they have paved the way for what is the modern game, where we now see around 30% of professionals coming from a Black, Asian, mixed heritage background, and it's thanks to the real message from me from the legends was it would have been acceptable, Butch, in those days, and it would have been, nobody would have doubted if they'd said, I'm not dealing with this, why should I put up with this? But because they have, we now have a game that I think is certainly diverse, and it's certainly vibrant for the rich heritage and difference of players we have, and we owe them a debt of thanks, because can you imagine, Butch, what a game would be like if they did give up? Because that would have sent a terrible message to the next generation and the next generation after that. Absolutely inspiring. Butch, thank you for hosting. Luther, your contribution was amazing. Viv, absolutely amazing. Butch, I want to say thanks to Pav and to Danny for being on the call, to Kelly and to Lee for supporting the questions. If you want to carry on with the conversations, and if you want to have a look at the club placement program, if you make your way to the Boot Room, bootroom.com, if you want to carry on with the conversations, if you click on community and get involved with some discussions there. If you carry on, if you go on Twitter at FA Learning on Twitter, we'll be carrying on some conversations there as well over the next couple of days. And also this webinar will be available on YouTube shortly on the FA's channel. And we'll also, don't forget to get in touch with your coach development officer via their email address. We'll make sure we get that information out to you as well separately. Butch, it just remains me to say, have a fantastic evening, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. Our next foray into Black History Month via webinar will be on the 11th of October at 7 p.m. and that's titled Young, Gifted and Black. And that'll be with Emil Heskey and Troy Townsend. Emil talking about his amazing playing days and experiences, and Troy, the amazing and fantastic work that Kick It Out and Troy does, particularly in supporting the game and trying to drive out some of those issues that still exist today, but were very prevalent when the marvellous Luther and Viv played. Thanks to everybody for joining us this evening. Stay across the FA channels for more information about Black History Month, and I hope you all have a fantastic week. Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.